People don't like to talk about death. They dance around it. They use euphemisms. They say someone passed away or departed, or is no longer with us, as if the person simply stepped out of the room and might come back any minute. But I'm a physicist. I don't do euphemisms. I do reality. And reality is this. You are going to die. I am going to die. Everyone you love is going to die. Every human being who has ever lived has died or will die. This is not pessimism. This is not morbid fascination. This is simple, observable, undeniable fact. And here's the strange thing. Despite death being the most universal experience, the one thing that connects every living creature that has ever existed, most people have no idea what actually happens. Not what they hope happens. Not what they fear happens. Not what their religious tradition tells them happens. What actually, physically, scientifically happens when a living thing dies. And when you understand that, when you really see what death is from the perspective of atoms and energy and the laws of physics, something remarkable occurs. Death stops being quite so frightening. Not because you learn that you'll live forever in some paradise. You won't. But because you realize that you were never separate from the universe in the first place, and you never will be. Let me start with something simple. What are you made of? Right now, sitting there, reading this or listening to this, what is the substance of your body? You probably know the rough answer. Atoms. You're made of atoms. Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and smaller amounts of other elements. About 60% of your body weight is water. The rest is proteins and fats and minerals, and all sorts of complex molecules. But here's what's interesting. Those atoms, where did they come from? They didn't appear out of nowhere when you were born. They existed before you. They've existed for billions of years. The carbon in your muscles was forged in the core of a star that exploded before our sun was born. The iron in your blood was created in the final moments of a dying giant star, scattered across space in a supernova explosion, eventually collected into the cloud of gas and dust that became our solar system. The calcium in your bones, the phosphorus in your DNA, the oxygen you're breathing right now, all of it came from stars. You are, quite literally, made of star stuff. This isn't poetry. This is chemistry. This is nuclear physics. This is the history of matter in our universe. Now here's where it gets interesting. Those atoms in your body, they're not permanent residents. They're just passing through. You eat food, and the atoms in that food become part of your body. You breathe air, and the oxygen atoms enter your bloodstream. You drink water, and those hydrogen and oxygen atoms get distributed throughout your tissues. At the same time, you're constantly losing atoms. Every breath you exhale carries away carbon dioxide. Your skin sheds cells that drift off into the air. You sweat. You excrete waste. You are not a fixed thing. You are a process, a pattern, a flow. Here's a number that might surprise you. Within about 7 years, nearly every atom in your body has been replaced. The atoms that make up your body right now are not the same atoms that made up your body 7 years ago. You have been continuously rebuilt, molecule by molecule, from materials taken in from the environment. And yet, you still feel like the same person. You have continuous memory. You have persistent identity. You recognize yourself in the mirror. How is that possible if you remade of completely different stuff than you were a few years ago? Because you are not your atoms. You are the pattern. You are the arrangement. You are the information encoded in how those atoms are organized. The atoms are like the letters in a book. The book can be printed and reprinted, the physical letters replaced with new ink on new paper, but the story remains the same. You are the story. The atoms are just the medium. Now let's talk about death. What happens when someone dies? Forget about souls and afterlives for a moment. Let's just look at the physics. When you die, the processes that maintain your pattern stop. Your heart stops pumping blood. Your lungs stop exchanging gases. Your cells stop receiving oxygen and nutrients. Without these inputs, the complex chemical reactions that keep your cells alive begin to fail. Enzymes break down. Membranes rupture. The intricate molecular machinery that kept you running winds down and stops. But here's the crucial thing. The atoms don't disappear. Not a single one. Every carbon atom that was part of your body is still there. Every hydrogen atom, every oxygen atom, every trace element. They're all still present, accounted for, conserved. The law of conservation of mass is absolute. Matter is neither created nor destroyed in ordinary processes. It just changes form. What happens next depends on what's done with your body. Let's say you're buried in the traditional way. Over time, bacteria and other organisms begin to break down the complex molecules in your tissues. This is decomposition. It sounds unpleasant, and it is. But from a physics perspective, it's just chemistry. Complex molecules being broken down into simpler ones. Proteins breaking into amino acids. Fats breaking into fatty acids and glycerol. Carbohydrates breaking into simple sugars. And eventually, all of these breaking down further into their basic components. Carbon dioxide, water, ammonia, simple compounds that return to the soil, the water, the air. And here's where it becomes beautiful. Those simple compounds don't just sit there. They cycle. The carbon dioxide released by your decomposition enters the atmosphere. A plant absorbs that carbon dioxide and uses it, along with water and sunlight, to build new molecules. That plant grows leaves and stems and roots made partly from atoms that were once part of you. An animal eats that plant. The atoms that were yours become part of that animal. That animal dies, decomposes, and the cycle continues. Around and around. Atoms flowing through the biosphere, taking countless forms, participating in countless lives. The nitrogen in your proteins has a similar journey. It gets released as ammonia, converted by bacteria into nitrates, absorbed by plants, eaten by animals, released again when they die. The phosphorus in your bones and your DNA enters the soil, gets taken up by roots, becomes part of new living things. Every atom that is currently part of you has been part of countless other things before and will be part of countless other things after. You are not the first stop on their journey, and you won't be the last. Let me make this concrete. The oxygen atoms you're breathing right now have a history. Each one has been around for billions of years. They've been part of rocks and oceans and atmospheres. They've been inside other people, other animals, other plants. Some of the oxygen atoms in your lungs right now were once breathed by dinosaurs. Some of them were part of trees that grew and fell millions of years ago. Some of them were in the ocean, part of fish, part of plankton, part of the endless churning of life in the seas. And after you exhale them, they'll continue their journey. Into a plant, perhaps, or into another person's lungs, or into the ocean, where they'll be absorbed and cycled through marine ecosystems. The journey doesn't end with you. It doesn't end at all. This is what happens when you die. Your pattern dissolves. The specific arrangement of atoms that was you, that held your memories and your personality and your unique way of seeing the world, that pattern breaks down. It cannot be maintained without the continuous input of energy and matter that life requires. But the atoms themselves, they go on. They become part of other patterns, other lives, other arrangements. In a very real sense, you are returned to the world. The loan is repaid. The atoms that were temporarily organized into you are released to be organized into other things. Now, some people find this depressing. They want more. They want their pattern, their self, their consciousness to continue in some form. They want heaven or reincarnation or uploading into a computer. And I understand that desire. I really do. The self is precious. Consciousness is remarkable. The thought of it simply stopping is hard to accept. But I want to show you another way to look at it, a way that I find not depressing, but profoundly beautiful. Consider this. Before you were born, the atoms that would become you were scattered across the earth. They were in the soil and the water and the air. They were in plants and animals and other people. There was no you. Your pattern didn't exist. The specific arrangement of matter that creates your consciousness hadn't come together yet. Were you suffering during all those billions of years before your birth? Were you lonely or afraid or desperate? Of course not. You weren't anything. There was no you to experience anything. And after you die, when your pattern dissolves and your atoms disperse, it will be the same. There will be no you to experience anything. No suffering, no loneliness, no fear. Just the same state of non-experience that preceded your birth. You've already been dead for billions of years. It didn't bother you then. Why should the prospect of future non-existence bother you now? But let me go deeper, because I think there's something even more profound here. We talk about life and death as if they were opposites, as if life is one thing and death is another thing, and you cross some boundary from one to the other. But from the perspective of physics, that boundary is blurry. Consider a single cell in your body. It's alive, right? It metabolizes. It responds to stimuli. It can reproduce. But it's also constantly exchanging matter with its environment. Molecules flowing in and out. Is it the same cell from moment to moment? In what sense? And what about the atoms themselves? They're not alive in any meaningful sense. Carbon atoms don't metabolize. Oxygen atoms don't reproduce. Yet when you arrange them in certain ways, life emerges. So where does the life come from? Where does it go? Here's how I think about it. Life is a process, not a thing. It's not a substance that inhabits matter. It's a pattern of activity, a way that matter can be organized to do certain things. When matter is organized that way, we call it alive. When that organization breaks down, we call it dead. But the matter itself is indifferent. It doesn't care whether it's part of a living thing or a rock or the atmosphere. It just follows the laws of physics, doing what matter does. Life is a temporary configuration, a whirlpool in the stream of matter and energy that flows through the universe. Think about a whirlpool in a river. You can point to it and say, there's a whirlpool. It has a location and a shape and properties you can describe. It persists for a while. But what is it made of? Water. The same water that's in the rest of the river. The whirlpool isn't a thing apart from the water. It's a pattern in the water. A way the water is organized and moving. And when the conditions change, when the flow shifts, the whirlpool disappears. The water is still there. It just isn't organized into that pattern anymore. Where did the whirlpool go? Nowhere. It was never a thing that could go anywhere. It was a process, and the process stopped. You are a whirlpool. A very complex, self-sustaining, self-aware whirlpool, but a whirlpool nonetheless. The matter of the universe flows through you. Energy flows through you. You maintain your pattern for a while. This remarkable pattern that can think and feel and wonder about its own existence. And then eventually, the pattern dissolves. The flow continues, but not in that particular configuration. The whirlpool is gone, but the river remains. I find this comforting. I don't know why, but I do. Maybe because it means I was never separate from the universe in the first place. I didn't come into the world from somewhere else. I grew out of it, like a wave grows out of the ocean. And when I die, I won't go somewhere else. I'll subside back into it, like a wave returning to the water. There's no boundary to cross, no foreign territory to enter. I'm already there. I've always been there. The universe is my home, and I never left it. Let me talk about energy for a moment. Because matter isn't the only thing that's conserved. Energy is conserved too, the first law of thermodynamics. Energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed from one form to another. So what about the energy in your body? You're running on chemical energy, extracted from food, originally captured from sunlight by plants. That energy powers all the processes of your life. Your thoughts, your movements, your heartbeat, everything. When you die, that energy doesn't disappear. It gets released. As heat mostly. The chemical reactions of decomposition release energy. The bacteria that break down your tissues are capturing some of that energy to fuel their own metabolism. The energy that was sustaining your pattern gets redistributed into the environment, powering other processes. And here's something wonderful. The energy that's flowing through you right now, keeping you alive, that energy came from the sun. Sunlight hit a plant. The plant captured that energy and used it to build sugar molecules. You ate the plant, or you ate an animal that ate the plant. You broke down those molecules and extracted the stored energy. The sunlight is inside you now, transformed into the electrochemical signals in your brain, the contractions of your muscles, the pumping of your heart. You are animated by starlight. And where did the sun's energy come from? From nuclear fusion in the sun's core, hydrogen atoms being smashed together, fusing into helium, releasing enormous amounts of energy. And where did the hydrogen come from? From the Big Bang, the primordial hydrogen that made up most of the early universe, forged in the first few minutes after the beginning of time. The energy that powers your thoughts is energy that has been flowing through the universe for nearly 14 billion years, taking form after form, star to plant to animal to you, and it will continue flowing after you're gone, into other forms, other processes, other lives. Do you see what I'm getting at? You are not a static thing. You are an event, a happening, a temporary eddy in the cosmic flow of matter and energy. You popped into existence a few decades ago when a particular arrangement of atoms became capable of self-awareness. You'll pop out of existence when that arrangement breaks down, but the matter and energy that comprise you will continue. They were here before you. They'll be here after. You are the universe experiencing itself, for a little while, in this particular form. Some people ask me if I believe in life after death, and my honest answer is, I don't know. Nobody knows. We have no evidence either way, but I'll tell you what I do believe. I believe that the question is less important than people think, because even if there is no continuation of consciousness after death, even if your pattern simply dissolves, and that's the end, you are still here. You existed. You experienced things. You loved and struggled and wondered and learned. You were part of the universe's grand adventure for a brief, shining moment that happened. Nothing can take it away. The past is real. It exists. And your life is part of it forever. Think about this. When you die, every effect you ever had on the world continues to propagate. Every person you influenced carries some trace of that influence. Every action you took changed the configuration of the universe in some tiny way. Those changes ripple outward. They affect other things, which affect other things, which affect other things. In a sense, the pattern of causality that was your life continues to spread through the universe forever, getting more diffuse, mixing with countless other patterns, but never completely disappearing. You are woven into the fabric of reality, permanently. I think about my own death sometimes, not with fear, but with curiosity. What will it be like? I don't mean the experience, because there probably won't be any experience. I mean the process, the physical reality of it. The atoms that are currently thinking my thoughts will be doing something else. The energy that's currently maintaining my pattern will be flowing elsewhere. The whirlpool that I call myself will unwind, and somehow I find that acceptable. Because I got to be a whirlpool, I got to be this particular, never-to-be-repeated arrangement of matter. I got to see things and learn things and feel things. The universe didn't owe me that. It's remarkable that it happened at all. Here's what I want you to understand. Death is not the opposite of life. Death is part of life. It's the completion of life. Without death, life would be something entirely different. Maybe it wouldn't be possible at all. The cycle of matter through the biosphere depends on death. The atoms have to be released to be used again. The energy has to be freed to power new processes. If nothing ever died, everything would grind to a halt. Death is what makes room for new life. It's what keeps the flow flowing. And from the perspective of physics, death is not mysterious. It's not supernatural. It's not even particularly special. It's just what happens when a complex system can no longer maintain its organization. Stars die. Galaxies evolve. Mountains erode. Everything that has a pattern eventually loses that pattern. You're not exempt from this. Neither am I, neither is anything. Impermanence is not a flaw in the universe. It's a feature. It's what makes change possible. And change is what makes everything interesting. So what really happens when you die? Your pattern dissolves. Your atoms scatter. Your energy disperses. The specific configuration of matter that was you returns to the general pool. And from that pool, new configurations arise. New patterns. New lives. The dance continues. The universe keeps on doing what it does, which is everything, everywhere, all the time. And you are part of it. You are part of it. You will always have been part of it. Nothing can change that, not even death. I want to tell you one more thing. When I think about the people I've loved who have died, I don't think of them as gone. I think of them as transformed. The atoms that made up their bodies are still out there somewhere. The energy that powered their lives is still flowing in some form. The effects they had on me and on everyone they knew are still rippling outward. They are still part of the universe, just not in the concentrated, organized, self-aware form I knew and loved. That form is gone. But the substance is still here. It will always be here. And in that sense, nothing is ever truly lost. This is what physics tells me about death. Not about meaning or purpose or what it's all for. Those are different questions. But about what actually happens. And what actually happens is not an ending. It's a transformation, a transition, a redistribution. The universe doesn't create and destroy matter. It rearranges it. And that rearranging includes you. You are an arrangement. A beautiful, improbable, temporary arrangement. And when that arrangement ends, a new arrangement begins. That's not tragedy. That's physics. That's how it works. That's how it has always worked. And honestly, I think that's enough. I think that's more than enough. Because when you really understand it, when you really see your place in this vast cosmic process, you realize something important. You are not separate from the universe, briefly visiting. You are the universe, briefly human. And when the human part ends, the universe part continues. Because it was never something other than you in the first place. That's what really happens when you die. You go home, to the place you never left, to the matter and energy and patterns and processes that you always were. And the universe goes on, as it always has, as it always will, doing the thing it does, being, becoming, forever.